And we are live. Welcome to MOT Media, everybody. MOT Today. Sorry, got to get used to that. So this is the second episode we have for MOT Today. No YouTube today. We won't be able to go on YouTube until tomorrow because the powers to be are like, yeah, you guys are spreading misinformation despite the very objective and tell you when we're inserting our opinion.
It's the new thing, man. Hi, guys. My name's Mick, and this is episode 2 of MOT Today.
Yeah, what are you drinking on, Mick?
I'm drinking some coffee.
I got some raw cow milk here. Good for
Nice.
my belly. Good for my soul. Good for my blood. Good for my everything.
Yeah, there is still that milk shortage going on. It's like, well, it seems like it's only like specific brands or something, and it just happens to be the kind that we normally get.
Yeah. Well, I think not to get too dystopian here, but I think it's just going to ramp up, honestly, which is why I've been encouraging people for years now, localize your supply chains. I can't say years. I'll say a couple years. Yeah, that's so important. Supply chains, if you're depending on them for like nationwide, global, you're going to have some trouble because people are, I don't want to say that at the risk of sounding like a boomer, a lot of people don't want to work right now. And I get that sentiment. I do. And it's mostly because they feel like they've been betrayed and they want something better. And I think that we'll end up seeing that. And people just don't like the way the system's set up. And so they feel that it's rigged. And that's why I think a lot of people aren't working.
Well, we need. They're not supposed to think that way, right?
No, you don't. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, you shouldn't be thinking that. I mean, I understand it.
Well, I'm saying, like, from the government's perspective, they're like, oh, no. I mean, it is pretty much, but we're getting kind of like,
which is okay. We're killing some time before,
Yeah.
We're just
let's get some people in there.
That's all we're doing.
You able to see
what's going on?
How many people we have?
Says nobody right now, but that's okay. We could have people on Twitter. Twitter doesn't read. That's cool.
Yeah.
Doesn't show on here.
What are we on?
We're on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. You can find us on Twitch at MOT Media, Twitter at MOT Media 1, and then Facebook at MOT Media. Like I said, we're banned from YouTube until tomorrow, and then we'll be back on YouTube, and Mick and I will be careful with our words. We'll come up with code words. We can go over those code words right now. So unicorn is going to be what we call, the vid. And then we'll just refer to the other thing where they want to poke you with is jabs. We can call them pokers. We can call them poison. We can call them a bunch of different things. Any negative connotation to getting something injected in you, just know that that's the V. That's why we actually got banned or striked, I should say, from YouTube, because we're not technically banned. We just have we have a strike because I guess we spread some misinformation. But yeah, the Supreme Court justice. What's that?
It has to be called. We can't spread misinformation. We have to spread Mr. Information.
Right. Right. They're being sexist.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We got some interesting stuff to talk about today, but I guess just to continue off of what we were talking about until people get in here with the worker shortage, because that's affecting everybody. My job was feeling it for a while. We're starting to get better staffed, but the other hard part is getting people who actually want to come in there and do the work. Like a lot of people just show up, don't really try, and just want to leave.
Well, especially in the automotive industry, because
right.
We know how that is. Because you get paid flat rate, or I don't know. Is that how it is there?
No, it's hourly, and then you get paid kind of like a flat rate. So like an oil change, you get paid like $2 for. Rotation, you get paid $2 for. Alignments, you get paid $15 for. Major
Oh, okay.
suspension work, you get paid like $10-20 for. So you're not getting paid by the hour what all data source or another labor manual states. They have their own sort of pay system there, which is nice. A lot of technicians prefer that over what you get at a dealership, which is like flat rate, but you're guaranteed 30 hours at your regular rate. Like they still get
Oh, okay.
paid their 40 hours or overtime for their hourly rate, and then they get a bonus based on their productivity.
Yeah, that's how it was at
Firestone.
at Firestone. Yeah, they gave you like a guaranteed minimum amount of hours in case like it's slow or something.
Right.
It wasn't 40, just like it sounds like it's not. You said it's 30 there.
Well,
I can't
no,
remember if it was. I think it
no,
was
no.
30.
It's 30 at most dealerships and most flat rate shops. You're guaranteed like 30, 35 hours. But yeah, so anyway, I mean, people don't really give a shit about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
nobody
as
cares.
you were saying, in automotive field and the manual labor field, it is harder to find, people that actually want to do the work. Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily want to be there, but I don't mind it. And I've always been the kind of person that's like, well, this is the job I got to do, so I'm doing it.
Yeah,
Like, I just do it.
just do it,
I don't
man.
know. I'm
Nike
sorry.
had it right, bro. I said, just do it, bro. Nike had it right.
Right. Exactly.
That's what they tell the little Asian kids. Just do it.
Right.
That's messed up.
I mean, I was gonna make a darker joke there. I was gonna say, maybe they're not telling them. Maybe the only time they're telling them don't do it is when they might be contemplating jumping out a window.
Or when they try to put on their shoes.
Yeah, don't do that and walk out with them. But all right. So we'll get started with the episode for today. So as you know, the structure is set up with, maybe you don't know because it's only the second one. We do state, we do national, and we do global. So to begin with, we're going to cover what's going on in the state that we reside, which is Ohio. And this is something that I think will be affecting many other states as well. And it has to do with food banks. So let's go ahead, get this pulled up, and we will go from there. So right here, we have, as pandemic rages on, lines and costs are up at food banks across Ohio. And what we're seeing here are basically the results of a crumbling supply chain. As you can see in this note here, this quote, the supply chains and the availability of food are getting tighter. The cost of food has gone up significantly just in the last 6 months. We're paying 18.5% more for food. And this was from Lisa Harmlin Fugit. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. She's with the Ohio Association for Food Banks. Another thing that they're feeling too is the lack of donations, private donations. So typically they would range between 45 to 50% of what the food would be received by the food banks were from private donations. But right now it's at a low of 33.5. And I think that has to do with supply chain, obviously, and inflation contributing to it. There's also another factor for certain products, such as meat, beef specifically, where the beef and the cattle price are not matching. And there's a whole thing going on right now in Congress as to whether or not the meat industry, specifically beef, cattle, are, basically controlled by a monopoly. And there's a good argument for that. But anyway, we are seeing a huge decrease in what people can get at the food banks. It's getting harder to get. Also, it's getting harder to find workers to staff to do the job, as we were just talking about, and this right here, I think, is a waste of money. So they want $30 million, right, from the $620 million spent unspent federal relief funds for, the bid, the unicorn. And they want to spend it not only on food, but things like mask, hand sanitizer, and testing kits. Like that to me is retarded and a waste of money. I mean, come on.
Maybe Maybe some like gloves or something if they're like dishing out soup to like hundreds of people or something.
Maybe I can see how that might comfort some people. I have a totally different view on that
I
stuff.
like maybe they don't want to get soup all over their hands. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, well, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, hey, maybe they want to be clean. So, like the testing. Why even like? Have we not realized yet that we
wait, did it say that they're going to test the people at the food bank?
No, it said that they want
Okay.
to buy. They want to use if they were approved that money to buy a unicorn test.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
if you're not paying attention, I mean, like, have you not noticed that we're just creating a whole new economy, a whole new market for the unicorn, for the
So
bid?
they're going to be giving them out like they would the food?
No, that's what they wanted. They wanted to get money so that way they could buy that stuff.
That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's like their plan. Okay. And then they're just going to like, because they donate the food, they're going to donate that as well.
Correct.
So that's the plan. Okay.
Correct. As well as masks and other things, which it's really dumb. But anyway, we'll get sidetracked talking about that for too long.
Well, I think that I don't think it's stupid that they want the money for food.
No.
Because we got to spend the taxpayer dollars somehow, right? They're building a circle at every damn intersection within a 1,000-block radius, 1,000-mile radius, like around where I live. They're like turning every intersection into a circle. They got to find some way to spend the taxpayer dollars. So buy some food.
Well, I mean, we can go off on another topic about roundabouts. Supposedly they're safer than stoplights, which I don't know. Anyway,
are they doing that around where you live in Ohio?
I mean, yeah, they are coming out more, but we don't have to deviate from the roundabout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with the food banks here, I think this. So here's my opinion, and we'll get mixed opinion. I'm going to change this up. I feel like it's too far away. So, food banks aren't bad. My belief is that we have too many empty front lawns and backyards to not have enough food for everybody. If you live in the hood, you have a house, you have a big enough yard to have a couple chickens. You can grow some fruit, some veggies, get a greenhouse. There's enough. Like I used to live in St. Clair, in the hood, like one of the worst parts in Cleveland, with my aunt and uncle when I first moved here. And they had a really nice garden, but their backyard was probably a little bit bigger than the room I'm in right now. Right? But they had a nice garden, and if they wanted to, they could have had some chickens back there. Yeah. They had plenty of room to have all the food they needed in their backyard if they wanted to do that. And if you're just living in an apartment, you could always grow, stuff in your house, and you can keep meat rabbits in your apartment too as a pet. You can say they're pets or whatever.
Yeah.
You can have meat rabbits. I mean,
don't say that. Don't tell your kids that.
What's that?
Don't tell your kids you're eating the pets. They're pets.
Right. So I mean, there are solutions.
Well, I mean, are you allowed to have chickens in the hood? I don't think you are.
Dude, who cares?
They'd have to change the laws.
Well, okay. Well, if you have hens, nobody's going to know that you have hens because they don't make a loud noise. It's the roosters that make the loud noise.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I don't think it's legal. I don't know.
I'm not over here giving legal advice.
And
I'm just saying,
in the hood, they're very
survive.
They like to follow the law over there in the hood, so they
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of work. That's
It is, but if you're going to be facing issues like this moving forward, then maybe what you should do is pivot and say, hey, let's start being more self-sufficient. Let's see what we can grow. Potatoes grow everywhere, man. Potatoes aren't that great for you. You eat a lot of them, cancer causing because of the carbs and all the garbage inside of them. But if you really need food to survive, like these are foods that you can make and grow anywhere in your house. I've grown potatoes in my apartment. Right?
How do potatoes have garbage in them? Is that what, like, you talk about, like, if they like their compost pile, or?
No, I was talking about like the nutrients.
Oh, they're not good for you? You don't think?
I know they're not.
Well, if they weren't good for you, then wouldn't Ireland be like not even a thing? Like, wouldn't they have all died if they survived on potatoes?
No, it's called a slave food, man. Like noodles came about out of starvation, pasta came out about starvation, soups came about out of starvation. A lot of these carb diets and stuff came about as for starvation.
Like the
Like
bread,
yeah,
the
yeah, like kings back in the day didn't really eat that much bread, if any. They mostly ate like meat, meat and fruits, like what you're supposed to. And fruits
hmm.
more so for the hydration. But I'm not like a health professional or anything like that. I've just done some research
I've
into this
never
area.
thought about that though. That's crazy, because they it lasts longer and shit, and they can hand it out, break the bread, and
Yep, yep. So it's for starvation. A lot of this stuff came about as starvation, and now it's a part of our diet as if it's good for us, but it's not. It's like starvation food. Like if you have nothing else to eat, that will keep you alive. It's not going to keep you very healthy. Your body's not going to get all the nutrients it needs. But if that's what you need and that's where you come to, you can survive off of that. You can feed your family for years off of it. It's like a last resort type deal, right? It's not ideal. But like with this food bank situation, if you're in a situation where you don't know what the hell to do and you feel dependent on these other institutions,
yeah.
the solution is pretty simple. It's do something then.
Yeah, that's
Grow
mostly
your
what
own
they give
food.
you at the food banks is like dried food, and so
Right.
you get your cans and whatnot. They have the yummy soup with the sausage in it, and it's
Right.
hot, like, but
Right, right.
I don't know.
And another thing that you can do, let's say you don't want to grow your own stuff, right? Let's say you don't want to do that. Try to find farmers markets, local butchers, local farms that you can go work at in exchange for some food, in exchange for some milk. For example, I've shared this a lot because it's something I'm proud of. Every Sundays after this stream, I'm going to be going to the farm and I'm going to be shoveling some cow poop, putting it in some gardens so that way, they fertilize the soil. And then in exchange for that, I get 2 gallons of milk for my work. I mean, we get a total of 4 gallons, but that's because we have a herd share. But 2 of those gallons I get from my work. And I can keep learning other things from these farmers who have been doing it for years. This is like a generational small farm where I go and help out. And that's always an option for you, like reach out to your local farms. They will do things to help you. And you will have a consistent supply chain for your food. You won't be in this situation. So there's ways to get food outside of these food banks. You don't need these big safety nets. Do they make things convenient? Yes. But when society starts to crumble, as we're seeing, and I'm not over here saying we're going to have a Mad Max situation, but I am saying that people are going to struggle a lot in the coming years with these things that are easily avoidable. So there will be certain people, such as those in the MOT community, who will be ahead of the curve and know what to do in preparation for things getting more difficult to come by, and you will not be affected by it. And so some people will, some people won't. And that's what we're trying to prepare people for with the MOT community. It's no fear porn here. Like this is what the real situation is. It's going to get worse. Prepare for it. And the state of Ohio is a perfect example of that. We have farms all over southern Ohio, all over southern Ohio, and agriculture is big here. In the north and in the south, but mainly in the south. And so other states are going to be feeling this as well, especially in your cities. If you're in a city like a New York City, a Cleveland, even, right? Cincinnati or Los Angeles, wherever, you can still, you don't need to depend on these institutions, man. Like you can grow your own food in your own home. You can find innovative ways to survive. People do it all the time. People do it all the time, and it's really just a matter of taking the initiative, taking that first step, and saying, "I don't want to be that dependent."
Yeah, you got to stay ahead of the curve with us, and I people are probably upset about all this stuff because the government just blows the money, like the unicorn tests that they want to buy are just a perfect example of just them blowing more money.
Right.
They got to find a way to spend all this money they're taking, right? They have to have something to show for it, because otherwise it's just going to all be going into the huge corporations' hands and stuff, and the powers.
That's exactly right. And if if you want to, the best way to rebel is not to raise arms. That's stupid. First off, we're so far away from getting anything like that together. Most of the men in America are a bunch of pussies, and they don't even know how to shoot a gun. A lot of the men in America. Okay, so like it's stupid to even fathom the idea of another civil war and raising arms. It's just stupid. The best thing you can. Plus, why do you even want bloodshed? Like that's so dumb. The best thing that you can do is simply don't swim. Like, what they tell you to do if you're in the ocean and you get caught in a riptide, it's not swim against it, it's to swim sideways. So you're caught in a riptide right now. You feel helpless. You're just being sucked into this blackness, to this abyss where you think everything's going to crumble. When all you have to do is just swim sideways, do your own thing, become more self sufficient. And actually, the system likes you more than the people that need the system. And the reason being is you're not a burden to the system if you're self-sufficient. You allow the system to be more efficient if you are self-sufficient. So it's actually a really beneficial thing for the system, for the dark state, or whatever you want to call this cabal. It's more beneficial for them if you are more self-sufficient. And that's the truth. And so it's so important.
Well, as long as you don't say anything that upsets them, I guess.
Well, you just go sideways, man. You go sideways. If you pose them no threat, I'm not posing anybody any threat. You're not either. MOT's not about that. We're simply about helping people get the confidence in themselves with the get the confidence in themselves to be self-sufficient while providing them real information. Like, this is what's going on in Ohio. This is what's going to be going on across the country.
Receiving information, like us giving you information, should not be a threat to anybody. If it is
exactly
perceived that way to somebody, then I don't know. I mean, that's going to have to be something that someone decides.
Right. So let's move on to the next thing for Ohio. Then we'll get into some national news here. So the next thing here is actually good news, really good news actually for Ohio and for the country, I believe. And so let's pull this screen up here. So Ohio, in New Albany, Central Ohio, looks like we're going to be making a chip plant there, which is pretty cool. So right here, I think you guys can see it now. Yep. So we have and so this hasn't been set in stone yet, but there are sources starting to leak this information out. So computer chip maker plans multi-billion-dollar plant in Central Ohio. And we were listening to this earlier before we got on here, and we found out that a large percentage of chips used to be made in America. Now very few do, and that's because of free trade. Free trade is not good. Free trade is bad. It eventually destroys economies, and then you become dependent on this global supply chain. And that's one of the big issues that we see right now, is the fact that the supply chain is crumbling, and now we are no longer able to get the chips that we once were able to get, right? Yeah. So by us doing that, we become more self-sufficient. And that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing, and it's going to bring more jobs to Ohio. So, yeah, I think that this is a smart move, especially with the uncertainty over in the Asian continent as far as these chips go, right?
Yeah, that's going to be great for Ohio if it happens. And it's, not going away. The chips, everybody loves chips. We got them, and then we also have there's a chip place, a chip factory down in Amish country. Man, what is it called? Shears, I think. I think there's a Shears factory down there. So we make chips, baby.
Yeah, man. That's good. Yeah, I think Ohio is going to play a good role in the future as far as the technological advancements go. We are seeing more of that. We are also seeing more agriculture things taking place in Ohio, more natural oil.
So I know somebody who said they were working on a crypto mining facility in Ohio right now.
Do you know anything more about that?
No, they just told me, that they're working on the computers, or they're building them like supercomputers or something. He's an electrician. He didn't talk about it too much. He just said.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's pretty cool, man. I think Ohio has a lot of good things going forward in the future. The only thing that makes me skeptical of Ohio is the political climate. We just had the Supreme Court say, in Ohio, that is, the Ohio Supreme Court say, all right, the new congressional map that you drew is invalid because of, I don't know the reason they said it, but uh, before it was actually the decision was made, because it was unfair and a little bit racist because it was in favor of Republicans. So yeah, that's the whole gerrymandering thing. We'll see how that goes. But that's a total side note. You can look into more of that yourself if you're interested. But yeah, so that's what's going on in the state of Ohio currently. Some of it's happening across the world. I mean, well, more so across the country. And as far as the chip manufacturer goes, that is going to help Ohioans as far as employment and help probably the rest of the nation in the years to come, maybe, depending on where we end up as a nation, right? Because that's a little uncertain at the moment. But that's what's going on right now in the state of Ohio. Nick, you have anything else you want to add to the current, state and what we've covered so far?
No, I think we're in a pretty good position. We got the water up north. We got the farms, like you were saying, down south. We got a good mix of everything here. People hate on Ohio, but I like it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's also one of the safest places to be from natural calamities. So that's pretty cool.
We get the tornadoes are really our biggest thing, but we about to find out. Supposedly, there's the storm of the century coming.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We have
just a few hours.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh man, I got to get out to the farm before it starts snowing.
Oh, shit.
All right, so let's move on to the national news now. So the national news, we got some interesting stuff going on here. Which, if you've been following me or what we've been doing at MOT for any amount of time, you should be aware at least of the build-up to this narrative. And that narrative being, sorry, I got all this stuff popping up here. Which, on a quick side note, I really used to like Epic Times, but I don't really care for them anymore because they do this BS. I used to read them before. No, like you at least have to sign in with an email address, and I don't like that.
There's a lot of news outlets are doing that, I've noticed.
Yeah, and I don't like it, and I don't think most people like it. There's ways to circumvent it. I mean, on my phone, I've signed up with the free email address because I've liked them. And, for such a long time. I've been reading Epic Times for at least 4 years, 3 or 4 years, something like that. And I thought that they provided a lot of good information, and now I don't really mess with them because of this BS. Like, I don't want to have to pay. I don't want to have to, put in my information. I get it if there's a few articles here and there where you have to pay because of censorship issues and stuff like that. MOT, we've talked about doing that for some of the articles regarding the unicorn and other controversial topics. We've debated whether or not we should have a paid subscription.
Yeah.
For that content. So,
what do you guys think? Leave us a comment.
Yeah, let us know. Hit us up in Telegram at
because otherwise you're probably not going to hear about it.
Right. So t.me/MOT Media. Let us know what you think there. Let us know via email, motmedia@protonmail.com. Or just leave a comment here after the video has been up, posted, whatever. But anyway, so let's get into what's going on in the national news here. So there's been a buildup for quite some time of domestic terrorism, right? So the FBI a couple of years ago was saying that conspiracy theorists would be labeled as domestic terrorists. And the narrative really started there. And we've just seen it grow and evolve into, or I should say metastasize into a bunch of other things, right? So right now, the Department of Education they requested the National School Board Association's letter to be sent to the Department of Justice. And the reason they wanted to do that is to set up a counter-terrorist investigation group on parents who were harassing, quote-unquote, and threatening school board members and teachers for what they're teaching their children, being forced to wear the mask, the whole jab nonsense. And parents are outraged by it, and they think that they pose a threat across the nation, and they want to label them as domestic terrorists.
Yeah, they're crazy. I think it should be the other way around.
Right. Yeah, we can. Yeah, and then also once we get on a quick side note before we get on to that, be sure to on the super chats, YouTube. We'll have that set up once we get YouTube back up.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's with YouTube.
um,
I just wasn't
there's
sure.
yeah, there's other ways too, but let's. So anyway, yeah, the domestic terrorist stuff. It is nonsense, and it is okay to be outraged at what's taking place. And I was listening to One America Network or something like that earlier today. OAN, they're supposed to be a conservative news site and news platform on TV, big Trump supporters, etc. And they were covering this today, and I did not like the way that they were portraying the situation, and that's kind of what we're combating here, because they basically just said, "Yeah, be mad, be mad, be mad that they're programming your children." That's basically what they were saying, and provided no real solutions other than be mad and tell them you're mad. And so, while I support going to the school board meeting, going to the PTA meetings, the school board meetings, whatever, to voice your concern and you know your non-consent to teach your children things that are retarded, right? To poison their brains. I get that. I'm all for that. But there are other solutions too, right? Like, okay, if you really cared, if you really cared about your children and this was a real concern to you, you would do things to make that happen. It's really not that difficult. I know everybody's situation's a little different. To just homeschool your kids. I mean, our kids aren't at homeschooling age, but it's really not that difficult to arrange something if you just put your energy towards it for your child to be homeschooled, for them to go to a better private school, for them to join a homeschooling group. Maybe you can find somebody who does homeschooling at their house and you would trust them more, like a schoolhouses, right? Where you would have an array of kids there, right, from a variety of ages, and the teacher would teach them subjects, and then the older kids would help the younger kids learn the subjects they had already learned.
Yeah.
So
somebody was telling me about some lady they knows who homeschools, like, I think she homeschools like 12 or 14 kids or something.
Yeah. We know a couple people who do similar stuff too. So there's other opportunities out there, and you cannot just blame the school board. You can't just blame the schools. It's mostly the parents' fault, if we're being completely honest. It's not the government, it's not the school boards, it's the parents' fault for giving up their responsibility as a parent and delegating that to the state and saying, teach my kid because you are better than me. That's what you've been saying, whether you know it or not. Teach my kid because I'm too lazy. Teach my kid because I don't know what I'm teaching. Teach my kid because I just don't want to teach them and I want to break, right? So, like, I know that's a controversial thing to say, but most of the blame is on the parents, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, that is the honest truth, but what people have actually been fed is that they need it because for social to teach them things about society, how to share and stuff. And so, I mean, whenever like the lady who homeschools all the kids, then they'll be able to interact with those kids. I guess they don't really need to interact with hundreds of kids, but that's what the theory is that, that's the big argument, really.
Right. And I think it's actually, I think it does more harm to interact with a diversity of people than it does good. And what I mean by that is, like, you're bringing.
I'm sorry, you said you think it does more harm to interact with, like, is there a specific number? Because
Yeah. So there isn't a
People
specific
go off to
number.
college and stuff, or what?
No. Say, what was the last thing you said?
College and stuff, like back in
Oh,
in the day, Renaissance Europe. I mean, people would travel the world and go to colleges, universities, and stuff, learn all kinds of stuff. I mean, I don't know. Isn't there a place for it somewhere?
maybe, but I'm really against the multiculturalism, and that's what these public schools encourage. And so what you get are a bunch of kids that are growing up one way in the house and then seeing a totally different thing. So their worldviews are incongruent. They get confused. And then they're like, well, who's right? Is society right in the public school or is my family right? And so you cause this rift right away. So young, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, this rift begins subconsciously where they're like, who do I go with? My family who birthed me, raised me, fed me, took care of me, etc., or society where I'm supposed to be? Like, you just confuse them. And so it's unnatural, is what I'm saying. The best thing to do is to remain in your community, your tribe, teach your children your values, and then associate with people who have similar values. And to have this diversity isn't necessarily a bad thing in doses, right? But it is a really bad thing when that's all you have is diversity, because if all you have is diversity, you then by definition have nothing but division.
Well, yeah, like historically, people would be raised on the farm until they got older, and then they would travel the world.
No, so maybe that was a very recent thing. That was like 1920s, like not 1920s, like 1900s. So people never left where they grew up throughout history, except for like the very wealthy people.
Yeah, right? Yeah, if they had the money, I guess, to travel. I mean, not everybody was able to do it, I'm sure.
Right. And then most people, I'm sure even the really wealthy people, a lot of them didn't do it because it just wasn't natural. Right, you are just like this idea of getting out of your comfort zone is also not really.
It wasn't as easy to travel. It took a long ass time and shit. Like nowadays, it's like, oh, I can get there in 4 hours. Sweet, I'm at the beach.
Right.
It's different nowadays.
It is, and so while we have these issues going on in the school, we have to also reflect as to our role as parents and how we got to where we are, because it didn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen after Joe Biden got elected, right? It didn't happen after Trump left office or anything like that. It didn't happen because of Obama. It didn't happen because of George Bush. It didn't happen because of any of that. This has been going on for a much longer time. I think that this all started, in my opinion, with public schools. The implementation and invention of public schools is what's been caused, is sort of just been building up into a moment like this, where you're going to, call people.
I can see that. I mean, it's created a massive dependency on the system.
It has.
I mean, before that, people weren't really dependent on the system. I mean, they drove on dirt roads and shit. Like,
right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like you can make your own roads. The whole argument, like, oh, well, taxes pay for the roads, taxes pay for this. It's like, you can make your own road. You know that? Like, why can't you just come together with a few hundred people, a few thousand people and say, let's all decide to pitch in to build this road? You could do that.
Well, here's the thing, Lee. We're so far past that it's like.
We're not. We're at the beginning of it, man. We're at the beginning of it.
We have a lot of roads that aren't dirt right now. We don't need to build any.
Well, I was talking about
need to be built, but
well, I was more so. I wasn't talking literally about roads at that point.
I know. I'm just making a joke.
But
all right.
So,
well, was there anything? Wasn't there another national thing or?
No, that was pretty much it. And there was a bunch of letters and stuff that you guys can look into. Yeah. So I mean, really, with the whole school thing, the best thing I think people can do is, actually raise your child. I think that's the biggest thing. Teach them what you believe in. But in order to teach them what you believe in, you first have to figure out what the fuck you believe in. What do you, as a parent, think is right and think is wrong? And this whole the truth is subjective. Well, they could be right in their perspective, but they're wrong in our perspective because of No, like there should be hard lines drawn in the sand, and you shouldn't be afraid to stick up for those lines. That's where the man comes in. Man is the one that defends those lines and protects his family and leads his family to know that there are certain lines you don't cross. You don't let people cross. They cross those lines. There are X, Y, and Z repercussions. And we've sort of lost that. We've lost that sense as men to have a boundary. And I think that's what we need to get back.
Yeah, you gotta lay the hammer down sometimes. No,
yeah, there's a quote in a Russ song. I like Russ. I've been on a big Russ kick lately. He says that I rule with an iron hand inside a velvet glove. I was like, that's a really good line.
Oh yeah, soft touch.
Yeah,
that's like the speak loud and carry a large stick, or
yeah.
Speak softly, carry a large stick.
Yep.
Isn't that your homeboy Teddy? Was that your Teddy?
It is my homeboy Teddy. I wish he was my homeboy. That dude's
that'll be the new meme.
Right.
You have to make that up, buddy. All right. Well,
so yeah, I got some milk on my glasses there. Splashed up.
Now we're moving to world news.
All right.
We're heading to Africa, which seems to be a land of fire. There's so much different things going on all throughout Africa. It would take us like a week to cover everything, and then we'd be behind. There's just so many countries. I wish I would have written that down, how many countries are in Africa, but there's a lot of them. Most of them nobody knows about because, a lot of people aren't good at geography, but it's a very divided continent, I'd say. In the United States, there's just 3. And in Africa, I have to look it up real quick. The last thing I was trying to look up was the potato factory in Ohio, and I couldn't even find it, but let's see. I mean, what do you think about that? Isn't it a pretty divided continent?
It is, and I actually think that
54 countries in Africa. That is insane. 54. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot. I actually think that we'll see in the years to come a large portion of that continent becoming one country.
Yeah, well, and I was interested to hear what you had to say about that, because that's what I think too. But I know that you're always saying the Balkanization of the U.S. and stuff. So it's like, but back then probably was less countries, and then there was the Europeans that came in, ripped everything apart. But it wasn't just them. The Muslims came in, right. Although a large portion of them already were Muslim. I don't know a whole lot about the history, but I know that colonialism had a huge impact on it, and that's where we get South Africa
from. So I think that we will see the amalgamation of much of the continent of Africa. A lot of these countries will become under one country.
They're going to have to unite. That's their only chance. I mean, they've been divided for so long, it's obviously not working.
Yeah, and I think that that's why they welcome the support from China. So there's this narrative that China's getting them in a debt trap, China's manipulating, China's using them for leverage in the UN, which probably some of it's true. But there is this interesting book I've been reading so far. It's called The Dragon's Gift. In a lot of these African countries, their presidents that have received aid from China are saying that they welcome it because China is the perfect example of how to grow by being drugged down by the West. Because China did that. China was just a very impoverished state not long ago, like very recently, like early 1900s, I would say like mid 1900s. They were very poor.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically genocided by the Japanese.
Yeah. So, I mean, China is a good role model to them for a lot of these countries. And so they actually welcome the advice, the money, the support from China over other countries, contrary to popular belief. And it's because they think that they can learn something from China. In China, the reason I bring this up is I've talked about the warring states before, where China, this huge country, right, used to be similar to Africa in that it was a bunch of little countries with a bunch of little kingdoms And then what happened in like the 300s, 400s? You had the Warring State period, and then the I believe it was the Jin dynasty ended up, being the dynasty that ruled over all of China. And it was brutal. I'm not saying like those times were like good or everything was like kumbaya after that, but from what you read historically, I mean, a lot of brutality, right? But you have to, I think, when you're in a situation like that, when you have so many different ethnicities, you have so many different cultures. I think that's a must, and that's what Africa faces right now. And I think that we'll see a large portion of it, as I've already mentioned, do something similar to that.
Yeah.
I mean, take for instance what's going on in Ethiopia. Actually, before we get there, why don't you?
Yeah. Here, I'm going to bring up this picture. I'm going to attempt to. Of Africa, because like I said, a lot of people aren't very good at geography, so we are going to. Well, that's not going to work. There it is. Take a look at this. You able to see that, or?
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, that is Africa, all 54 countries, and we're going to start here in Niger. We're going to start the bloodshed here. Well, we didn't do it, but someone did. Where 6 were killed, 10 were wounded by suspected heavily armed jihadists in the Talabari region, which is this little area right here. And I'm going to bring up another picture so that you can see that in more detail. There's multiple countries in that region. Right here, it's called the Talabari region. It's some call it a flashpoint zone, where it's just a lot of instability, and you have the country of Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Mali, all in this little area. And
we can't see anything if you're trying to give me a second.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, yep. This is the area where the 6 were killed and the 10 were wounded. It's the Talabari region, and it shares the border with all these countries. Like we were just talking about, there's all these different countries. They all are very impoverished. And so where they all connect, there's some instability there. It's considered a flashpoint zone. There's just a lot of violence and unlawlessness there, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
So that's what's going on there in Niger. And that's just one of the places. I'm going to bring up the picture of Africa again, Louise, so they can see where Ethiopia is.
Okay.
And then you can go ahead and if you could just go ahead with it while I do it, because I have to try and find it real quick.
Well, actually, I wanted to show this picture of Ethiopia. I had another one that I wanted to show because it'll illustrate better what's going on, I think. Because you actually get just the perspective of Ethiopia. So bear with me for a second here, guys, as this works to load. All right, so it's loading right now. So let's go ahead and share that for everybody. All right, so in Ethiopia, this region right here, Tigray, or however the hell you pronounce it, is receiving a lot of military attack.
Yep.
Right? They're getting drone strikes. Civilians are dying. It's crazy over there. Yeah. Now, you may be wondering, what the hell's going on? Why is this war even taking place? Well, to try to make the history very concise, Ethiopia was one of the only countries in Africa that was not colonized by the Europeans. And the reason they weren't, the theory goes, the reason they weren't colonized is because the Ethiopian Empire began to spread out. So originally, Ethiopia was mostly just like this region here, like just this. But then it spread out and grew to where it is now. And by doing that, they were able to set up a natural buttress to the colonists. And these other groups here, so like the main Ethiopian people, ruled over the other countries that they acquired over that time. They were very diverse, different ethnicities, different cultures, etc. And then in after World War II in 1952, you had Ethiopia taking over this country right here, Eritrea. And this is where things start to get very interesting because Eritrea was like, hey, yo, in 1970, we don't want to be under Ethiopian rule anymore. They started a militia called the Eritrea People's Liberation Front, EPLF. The EPLF ended up, well, actually, let's stop there. So they started a militia to try and combat the Ethiopian takeover. And then, like, 7 years later, you had a communist takeover in Ethiopia itself, right? And what you then see across these other little nations that Ethiopia had absorbed, these other little regions that were different cultures and ethnicities, they or the colonel who took over ended up doing a massive crackdown, military crackdown for complete submission. It was known as Red Terror. And during that time, other militias were formed. And all this ties into what's going on right now. This is like very important to lay the groundwork as to what the hell is going on. So other militias were formed as a result of that. And then one big militia that was formed as a result of that was the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, right? So they were formed out of that. And so the TPLF and the EPLF started working together to go after the Ethiopian government. And other militias sought protection from these two attempted breakaway societies from Ethiopia. And so as a result of that, the colonel, the communist dictator at the time, ended up attacking a lot of civilians in Tigray, sending military forces to the north. And then in 1991, we see that the EPLF and TPLF worked with other militias to overthrow the communist dictator. And then Eritrea, this country up here, claimed independence. From there, the first leader, this leader came from Eritrea, I believe, became the prime minister over the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. And then the TPLF became the political party. He became the leader, the prime minister, and then he ended up breaking up all these different ethnical regions into political parties. One of those political parties was the TPLF. And they became one of the more powerful political parties. And they did not want to be involved in what was going on in Ethiopia. And so once again, Ethiopia went to war with Eritrea and Tigray. And so this war between Tigray, Eritrea, and Ethiopia has been going on for years, right? And then in 2012, the TPLF had actually come to power. When they came to power, we see a new leader come about. This new leader is the current president. He actually won a Nobel Peace Prize, which doesn't mean anything. I mean, for instance, Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize, but he bombed more people than any president in history. Started more wars, etc. So anyway, Abiy Ahmed is his name. He then made a new political party called the Prosperity Party. And now what we're seeing is him attacking Tigray again. And he's having Eritrea help him attack Tigray because Tigray wants to split off, wants to do their own thing. And that's what's going on in Ethiopia.
So Tigray is basically the old government, and the new one has taken over the TPLF. So did Eritrea used to be part of the original Ethiopian kingdom? Like they had that water right there. They owned the sea.
Yeah. After World War II, they absorbed it. So in 1952, they took over Eritrea.
So did the British and stuff help fund this uprising where Eritrea was able to break away from them?
I don't know. I don't know much about that history specifically.
I know not too long ago, Ethiopia was having some kind of land disputes with Eritrea a couple years ago, maybe, because I bet that really hurt them. They don't have that land there. It's almost like
Right.
the powers that be, the
Want it to be
colonizing
landlocked.
countries, they don't want you to have access to water.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a huge transportation opportunity there for that country. So I don't really know what happened with the break off there. That's about as much as I know at the moment to give you a little bit of background as to what's currently going on. So basically, it's just this continuation of this war, right? That has been going on for years and years
well,
and years.
that's probably what it is with like basically all the countries there. It's just a continuous war country state.
Yeah, and we'll see how it plays out. Some people theorize as well that Africa is sort of like the Oceania. But basically, there's a
I
country.
lost you for a second. You said Africa is like Oceania.
Yeah, it's from 1984. It's a book by George Orwell.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've read it, but anyway.
I've actually listened to it. I haven't read it.
Okay, cool. So then Oceania, as you're familiar with, is the place where, if I'm not mistaken, it's Oceania, where war is always happening. And so that's where a lot of, it helps keep the whole, mind games going on with the enslaved people in the area where 1984 takes place because of this continuous wars that just take place. And people have theorized that Africa is like that.
Yeah.
I don't know because I've never been to Africa. I don't really care to go to Africa. And I'm just taking the word of, people who claim to know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean that's aren't we all?
Right.
All right, so can you see the picture where we're going to move over here to Somalia?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we started here in Niger, and this was the Tilabari region right here. See all these countries all bundled up. Then we were over here at Ethiopia, and up here was it doesn't even show Eritrea on this map. That's interesting. So this must be what Ethiopia used to be before that.
Yeah, or maybe they're just propaganda, like Eritrea is not independent. It's a part of Ethiopia.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, it is an old-ass map. Look at it. It says Soviet Union right here.
Sweet.
So cool.
Anyway, so then, all right, so we're going to move over here to Somalia, where a car bomb killed 8 people recently in the capital of Mogadishu down here. And they're not clear who it was. I believe they said that they think it was probably Al Qaeda or something because, they've done things like this in the past. And, China recently has highlighted this area. See, this area right here is called the Horn of Africa because it's supposed to look like a rhino's horn. And this is the area where China seems to be focusing their attention on as far as trying to unite Africa. So it's interesting as to why they would pick just that region, but I bet it probably has a lot to do with the whole Ethiopia thing. That was probably the largest mass conflict that they've had, in a while. And so yeah, that's the main region they're focusing on. But we know that there's been issues all over the place. You have any thoughts on the Somalia thing? I know that they had pirates not too long ago too, trying to take over ships and stuff. I mean, look how much coastline they have. So they would be the perfect pirate country, I guess.
Right. So, there's a lot of alleged terrorist groups over in Somalia, jihadists, that are causing a lot of these problems. So, I don't really know. Like this is a very, I don't want to say delicate, but it's really hard to give good insights as to what's going on there because first off, it's not my country. Secondly, I can never see Somalia. I mean, I could if I wanted to fly there, but I never will. And I'm just not really up to date as to what's going on in Somalia, other than jihadists are claiming responsibility for this. So terrorist groups allegedly.
Yeah. A lot of these countries have telecommunication bans in certain regions as well. I'm not sure which one it was. It may have been Nigeria, which we're going to touch on here in a second. I know it's not on the map, but I'll just go ahead and do it now. Nigeria, that's the one where it was. They have a telecommunications ban, and 30 were killed, and several villages were raided by people on motorbikes. Right here, look, it's that one area, the Tilabari region. But like we were talking about, it's kind of hard to know what's going on. A lot of these countries have telecommunications ban. I mean, hell, they don't even have infrastructure. Although I did hear something recently about huge infrastructure plans for Africa. So that could be something that helps to unite it,
Could be. Yeah.
Well, now we're going to move on to South Africa, if that's all right, unless you had anything else to talk about.
No, I do not. Actually, I will not be able to cover South Africa today.
Okay.
I should have messaged you privately on that. I am running a little short on time right now. I'm trying to, I ran into some feeding times last
night. Well, hey, we could cap it off here in just like 5 minutes real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. South Africa. Many of you may have heard this was a big thing. Down here in South Africa, it's supposed to be like the bastion of hope for, democracy in Africa. And the parliament was burned not too long ago. A man snuck inside through a window and torched the place. I'm going to show you a picture of it real quick. I guess he was charged with terrorism. Here's the picture. Wow, crazy. Imagine if that was the capital. See, that's a real insurrection, except it was only one guy. So, I mean, he busted, charged with terrorism. Not a whole lot really to go from there. I mean, they're going to, do an investigation and whatnot. So, yeah.
So we'll find out more as to what's going on with that. But we thank you all for tuning in to, MOT Media here, MOT Today, that is. We'll be back here next Sunday, same time. And yeah, guys, so please, if you like what you're seeing here, support us, hit the like button, hit the share, subscribe across the platforms, whether it be Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all of them. And then next week, we'll be going live on YouTube again. The Facebook Live will not be taking place. So it'll just be Facebook, Twitch. It'll be YouTube, Twitch, Twitter moving forward. But if we get banned again or striked again, we'll have to pivot and, do the Facebook again. Maybe we'll find a way to add the Facebook stream in there anyway. But yeah, guys, so thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. And Mick, you got anything you want to finish off with?
You guys have a good night. Stay ahead of the curve with MOT. Mine's tomorrow.
All right. See you guys.
See you next week.